What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be covering the changes to the AUG and the FFAR, and I'll just generally talk about the current meta and what I think the current meta is after these changes. I'll show you some recoil plots, some TTK, and I'm just, like I said, I'm just going to discuss in general what I think the meta is right now. As always, if you guys like the content, consider subscribing, dropping a like, dropping a comment. All that helps me with the algorithm, helps me grow, and helps support TrueGameData, which is more than just the YouTube channel, helps support the website, which is something that I've been working on for a long time to try to help you guys build the best loadouts. So yeah, consider it. If you guys want to help support, it's greatly appreciated. But we'll jump into it here, and I will talk about the AUG, the FFAR, the M16, and just in general the current meta. So let's do this. All right, so these are the patch notes for today's update. This was a surprise update that we didn't know was coming. So this is the AUG Cold War Tactical Rifle Charlie. That's the AUG. Recoil strength has been increased, and I will show you what this means, and more so than just the burst recoil being increased, there's something else I want to talk about, so that'll be an interesting part of the video. FFAR, all they did was ADS speed has been decreased, so yeah, the amount of time it takes to ADS was increased. I'll give you the number for that later in the video and talk about how that changes the FFAR and the meta. And then down here it says rear grip attachments have showed ADS speed pros should now properly increase ADS speed, so I will talk about that, go over that. And they fixed the Groza, where the mil-spec barrel, this is something that I discovered a few days ago. The damage increasing barrel, the last barrel, had no damage drop off, so they've apparently fixed that. I will test that and show you guys the change there. They fixed a bug with the Ember sighting point where the XM4 and the AK-47 had their ADS speeds increased rather than decreased, so I didn't know that. I hadn't tested that yet. I had heard that. A couple people messaged me about it, but I had never tested it myself. But that's been fixed now, apparently. Fixed a bug with the salvo fast mag on the FFAR and the M16 were not having their ADS speeds decreased. So that is something that they fixed in the previous update, but they didn't put in the patch notes. But that's been fixed for about a week now, so I'm not sure why that's in these patch notes, but I'll give you the numbers for that as well. And I'm going to give you recommended builds for all of this for the new meta that I think is what I think is the new meta in this video. And then it says the Pellington 703 wrap suppressor now properly represented in the stat bar, because you know the stat bars are super accurate. So now you can actually trust the Pellington's stat bars with the wrap suppressor. But anyway, let's jump into it. I'll start with the AUG and show you the increased recoil, talk about that a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Alright, so they said they increased the AUG's recoil twice. So in the update about a week ago, they said they increased it, and then today again they said they increased it. And I pulled this screenshot from my old video on the M16 versus AUG. It's probably from, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point. This was before any changes to either gun. So on the left is the old M16 and the old Cold War AUG, and then on the right, it's the same pattern. So on the left side, on the right picture, we have M16 on the left, and AUG on the right. And the AUG looks a little bit worse than it did, but not very much. I mean, honestly, those don't look that much different to me. But there's something else I'm going to talk about here in a second that is recentering time that has 100% been changed for the AUG, and it makes a huge difference for the gun. And you can't see it if you let the recoil recenter like I did in this picture. So we'll jump into that in a second. So for the individual burst, inside the burst, I don't think the recoil has been changed that much. Yeah, I'll talk about recentering speed here. Alright, so recentering speed, this is the thing I was just talking about when I showed the wall patterns. The wall patterns don't look that much different than they used to, but recentering speed, that's because in between each one of those bursts, I'm not shooting as fast as possible with the AUG. So it's recentering, and the recoil inside the burst is similar, but the recoil between the bursts has been changed. So between the bursts, there's an extra amount of time where it takes for the reticle to recenter back to the same point. And that makes it so the recoil just keeps climbing. So an example here first with the M16 in this video. So if I play this video, I got the M16 out. I am shooting the M16 as fast as you can right now. And it recenters to the same point every single time and never climbs. I swapped to the AUG here, and with this new change, you can see the AUG will just keep climbing because it's not recentering as fast as it used to. It used to hit the same spot, just like the M16, but now it will keep climbing, and this makes a huge difference at range. It's much, much harder to control. It's not even close between the M16 and the AUG anymore. It's 100% the M16 is more easy to hit your shots with at range. So I think that's a massive change, and I think that makes the M16 the new meta, personally. People gravitated to the AUG for the slightly better TTK, and I never understood that. It has a slightly better TTK, yes, but it both guns didn't have an amazing TTK unless you hit a headshot. But if you hit a headshot, they both have fantastic TTKs over pretty much everything else. So you mix in one headshot, and these things delete people just like instantaneously compared to every other gun in the game. And now that the M16 recoil is much more predictable and controllable and repeatable, I think that 100% that small TTK difference and small bullet velocity difference, the AUG has slightly faster bullet velocity than the M16. I don't think there's any chance the AUG is better than the M16 now. So I think the new meta is the M16, no question. And I don't think it's going to feel a whole lot different to people than the AUG meta did. I think once you get used to the M16, it's just insanely good. Another thing to talk about here briefly. So this is me trying to just pretend there's a guy over there and like controlling the recoil and trying to shoot them with the M16, and then now the AUG. It's just so much harder to control the AUG now that that recentering time is in there. Obviously, you can delay your bursts a little bit manually, so it recenters, but then you're going to have similar TTKs to the M16, so like, what's the point? Why not just use the M16, which automatically recenters and has that same TTK and has less visual recoil? Like, if you watch this, M16, when I actually start controlling the recoil, so I don't control it to begin with here, so I'm not controlling it there, and then here I start controlling it, very, very little visual recoil compared to the AUG. There's a lot more visual recoil. So I think the M16 is the new meta. I don't think it's going to feel a whole lot different, unfortunately, than the AUG meta once people start using it and get used to it, because the M16 was already fantastic. I don't understand why the community didn't use it. It was already amazing, and they haven't changed it at all, but now the AUG is a lot worse. So we're going to see a lot more M16s. All right, so for the best M16 builds, I think since the M16, in my opinion, is 100% the new best gun to run as your main weapon, I'm going to give you two builds for it. So the first build is just the standard long-range build. You still want to use Strike Team Barrel. I think the 3X is fantastic and really, really good for this build because the gun has such low visual recoil, such low actual recoil, that when you use this Axial Arms 3X and you get the same zoom as the Kar 98 sniper scope, you can just fry people at range because you can see them so well and there's so little recoil. So I think that's pretty important for the long range build of the M16. And then I still use Field Agent. Field Agent feels great to me on this gun. I've run it quite a bit without that actually too, just to experiment, and it's fine. I mean, you can run it without it. You could run a Serpent Wrap if you wanted to get really a lot better ADS times, but it already has really good ADS times because the only thing on this build that's hurting ADS is the silencer and the optic. So it really still has good ADS times even without the Serpent Wrap. So this is the recommended build for me. The 45 round mag, it would be nice to use the Stanag, but I just don't think it's worth the ADS penalty to get those 15 extra shots. It's very nice to have an extra 5 bursts in there, but I think in most situations where you need those 5 extra bursts, it's usually not a life and death situation. It's usually like when you're trying to shoot somebody out of a car that's driving by or something. So in those cases, yeah, you might miss a free kill that you would have gotten with the 60 round mag, but the number of times that having better ADS time is going to save you in a fight, I think is worth using the 45 round mag because, I mean, it saves you a death. So I think overall it's better to use the 45 round mag for this. So this is the first build, the main build. This would be what you would run with a secondary, either FFAR, Groza, or an SMG. And if you're going to run something like the Jack 12 with slugs that I talked about in my previous video, because that only has, 15 to 20 meters of effective range, you're going to want your M16 to be a little better up close than this. So the 3X sight makes it really hard to use the M16 inside about, I don't know, maybe like 50 meters. I'm just pulling that out of nowhere, but roughly 50 meters, it's pretty hard to use inside that. So my favorite thing to do when I'm running that Jack 12 or any sort of shotgun that has just no extended range at all, I will swap the 3X for the Hollow Scout and then take the Field Agent off because you're so close where you're using this now, you don't really need that Field Agent. And then pop on Serpent Wrap for really, really good. This has crazy good ADS times for how fast it can kill people. So this is my second recommended build for if you're running your M16 with a really close range gun like a shotgun. or akimbo magnums or akimbo M19s or something, this is a great build to run with the M16. And I'm going to quickly cover the FFAR changes now. So they said they increased the ADS time, and that is correct. So it went from about 238 milliseconds up to about 300 milliseconds. A quick note on this, just while we're talking about the FFAR and ADS times, the rear grips have been fixed now, so they work correctly. I will be getting the rest of the information on them pretty soon. Hopefully I want to test flinch resistance again. I want to retest sprint to fire time. Since they're tweaking the attachments, we need to retest sprint to fire time to make sure everything's the same. But I did test ADS times for all these, and this should scale appropriately across all the guns. So I think all of these wraps are probably working correctly across all the guns, but I only tested on the FFAR. The numbers are up on the screen for you to see now. Overall, I think the Serpent Wrap is still the way to go for the FFAR because we don't want to hurt our firing move speed, and that's what the Airborne hurts. And they have, within a frame, the same effect on ADS with my testing, so I think Serpent's still the way to go. We obviously don't want to hurt sprint to fire time, so there's a chance if Airborne still doesn't hurt sprint to fire very much, it might be better to use Airborne and just take the hit to the firing move speed, but it's something that needs to be tested, so I'll be doing that in future videos and putting it on the website. But they have corrected these, they're working correctly, and it should be the same across all guns. So as for the ADS times for the mags, so because the base ADS was increased, the way ADS times work in Call of Duty, they sort of work like a percentage, but then the way they stack on top of that percentage is more penalizing than you would expect. So if you stack two attachments that are plus 50 ADS, the net ADS change for the weapon will be something more like 120 increased milliseconds rather than just 100 like you'd expect. They don't stack linearly. And I've talked about this before, but so because the FFAR's ADS time was increased, the base ADS penalty of the 50 round mags also increased. So as I mentioned before, they fixed this salvo 50 round fast mag. In the past, the salvo 50 round fast mag was bugged and didn't hurt your ADS times at all with the FFAR. It's part of what made the gun so good. Is you get the fast reload and the big mag without any ADS penalties. They've fixed that now. They fixed that a few days ago. I don't know why it was just now in the patch notes, but it's been fixed for a while. So now the 50 round fast mag increases your ADS time by 108 milliseconds, so that's a ton. And then the STANAG 50 round mag, which is the only other mag with 50 bullets, which you really need in this gun because it shoots so fast, has a 58 millisecond penalty. So you definitely want to use the STANAG 50 round fast mag, or the STANAG 50 round mag for your large cap mag. Now it slows your ADS times down and it slows your reload time down, but the 108 milliseconds on the 50 round fast mag is just way too much. It's just not worth using. So basically, I think the meta build for the FFAR now is what I've got here on the screen. So basically, you're going to want to run regular suppressor instead of agency, just because agency hurts your ADS times. And now that the ADS times have been nerfed significantly and it's very slow ADS gun, you really don't want to hurt that at all. So I would run suppressor, and it does hurt your damage range and your your bullet velocity, but that doesn't really matter if you're running this as an SMG because it still has 30 meters of range before the first damage drop off, and it still has, 450, 500 meters per second bullet velocity. So it still has more range and the same bullet velocity as most of the SMGs. So you don't really need to worry about the fact that this hurts both of those when you're fighting other SMGs. And then Bruiser Grip, the logic behind this is just movement speed. Mobility is super important. It's an AR, so it has a little bit worse mobility than the other SMGs. So with the Bruiser Grip, you get 3.5% movement speed and 3.5% sprint speed, which is really nice. Just helps with both of those. The SVOD's like -7% movement and +1% sprint. So it's okay, and it helps with recoil. But overall, I like just having better movement everywhere rather than just when sprinting. It doesn't help recoil anymore, but it does help with your movement. And because you're using this as an SMG, recoil is not that super important because you're going to be inside 25 meters or whatever, so I wouldn't worry too much about the fact that you don't have a grip that's helping with recoil, because I just don't think you need it in those ranges really. Like I just said right before this, STANAG 50 round mag, that's just for ADS time reasons. The salvo 50 round fast mag, horrible ADS times now, so even though your reload time is a little bit worse, you're going to want to use the STANAG 50 round. And then Serpent Wrap actually works now, and because this gun has bad ADS times now, we want to bring that down as much as we can. So Serpent Wrap is what we're going to use, but because of that sprint to fire time penalty, 100% you still want to use the Raider stock. Raider stock helps with your sprint to fire, and also, as everyone knows by now, gives you that insane shooting movement speed. So you can't hip fire with this build at all. Obviously, Raider stock hurts your hip fire horribly. It's like 70% increase in hip fire. But this gun's still gonna be really good. It still has great ADS time, or great TTKs, and insane mobility for an AR. It is worse. I like the nerf. I like the ADS time increase. I think that was a good move. I would like to see the TTK increased a little bit, because this is still going to delete you if they're ADS, so that's not a fun feeling. If someone sees you first and they ADS, you're going to be dead, because this gun still kills ridiculously fast. I still think it's absolutely S tier for all the weapons. The change makes the Groza look a lot more attractive, although they did nerf the last barrel for the Groza, and now has a damage drop off, and I'll cover that later in the video. So I think between the Ram 7, the FFAR, and the Groza, we have three interesting options for like a sniper support, or you could still run this as an SMG, you could run the Groza as an SMG. They kill super fast, so I don't know. I think they're all three in a good spot. I think with this nerf, I still think the FFAR might be the best option to run as, definitely as a sniper support. As an SMG, we'll have to see. I need some more actual playtime with this to see how bad it feels with the new ADS time, so I can't really give a result for that. But once I play a little bit, I will update this and give you my thoughts on how the ADS times changed the meta for the FFAR. I still think it's S tier weapon, no question, just because of those TTKs, and the recoil is not too hard to control, so you can definitely still keep using it. But this would be my build that I'd recommend running with an SMG. And if you're running it with a sniper, just swap this out for agency, get better bullet velocity. But yeah, that's my recommended build there. All right, last up from today's patch notes, they put a note in there about how they fixed the damage drop-off for the mil-spec barrel on the Groza. So this is what I made a video on a few days ago. The mil-spec does increase damage now, actually, which is interesting. The only other thing I know of that does this is that Magnum that Exclusive Ace is covered. But before, it had no damage drop-off when you equip this barrel, so that I assumed that was a bug in my video, and it was, because they patched it. By the way, are they watching my videos? Because that was a really fast turnaround time from me reporting this to them patching it, so I think that's kind of interesting. But anyway, it does reduce your damage range now and increases your damage. So if we look at this on TrueGameData, it is now up to date. So we can select the Groza. I've also updated the ADS times for the FFAR. So what we're going to do is compare the mil-spec. So on the website, it'll say it doesn't do anything, but it does. It changes the damage profile of the weapon. So we'll add that, and then we're going to also add the FFAR. Get the FFAR in here, just the base FFAR. Generate summary. So if we look at 250 health chest shots before, the Groza didn't have this second drop off, so now the TTK is dramatically worse. And once again, there's not a whole lot of reason to use the Groza. It has much better ADS times than the FFAR now, and you can get the same sort of movement. You can actually get a little bit better movement with the Groza. But that kind of was one of the compelling reasons to use the Groza, is that it didn't have that drop off. So I don't know, it's in an interesting spot now where it has better ADS times. It's more like an SMG than the FFAR because of those ADS time changes. But the ADS time didn't change, but the FFAR is much slower now. So the Groza is at 221, FFAR is at 288, so that makes a dramatic difference. If you look at the chart and you include your ADS time, just include all of it, Groza is going to beat the FFAR by a good amount in chest shots. But again, you get the more chest shots with the Groza. I believe it's 5 chest shots, 2 body shots is the forgiveness of the Groza, whereas the FFAR is 4 chest shots and 4 body shots for the TTKs here in the first damage drop-off. So you have to hit a higher percentage of chest shots only with the Groza to get this good TTK. So I still think, I don't know, I still think the FFAR is a little bit better than the Groza as an all-rounder to pair with the sniper for sure. As for SMGs, the ADS nerf of the FFAR definitely brings SMGs back into the picture a little bit. So I think because of the ADS times, we're going to see a lot more MAC-10s, Cold War MP5s, Bullfrogs, Modern Warfare MP5s. Those are really like the 4 best SMGs right now. But overall, good bug fix. I just it's a little sad because it kind of takes away one of the things that made the Groza unique. But I mean, it was a bug, so it's good that they fixed it. All right, I think I covered everything from the patch notes today for this impromptu patch that they just put out. So a couple days ago, I did a live stream actually where I tested a bunch of different weapons, the new barrel changes, and a few other things as well. So I tested the FFAR, the Groza, the MAC-10, and the Bullfrog, and the AUG and M16, all 4 barrel changes, and I have all the new data for all of that now. I'll be putting that up on the site soon and probably making a video about it tomorrow. I had planned on doing that today, but because of this patch that we didn't know was coming, I felt like I needed to talk about that because it kind of mixes up the meta a little bit. So I wanted to focus on that first and then get out the information for the barrels, hopefully either tonight or tomorrow. I should be able to make a video on it tomorrow. So as always, if you guys like the content, consider subscribing, drop a like, drop a comment. I appreciate you guys always, and I will see you guys all in the next video.